So being a YouTuber, I get a decent amount of comments, some of which are good, some of which are bad, and some of which... Mirror Force cards has a niche use in anti-meta stun, as the first reflex of people is running over your floodgate monster. I touched your mum's turf earlier tonight. You might want to check if she's okay. When I found out it was your mum, I went pretty rough out of spite. It's a shame she made you. Yeah. So normally I read these kind of comments, I have a bit of a giggle, then I just sort of push them to the side and move on with my life. But sometimes I'll post something and I'll get a comment that will just really rub me the wrong direction. So the other day I reached Master 5 with Trap Tricks, and I decided, wow, this was actually quite a fun deck list to play. I want to share my experiences and just share some of the combos and tips and tricks I have about the deck list. So I went to my community tab, made a nice little long post for people to read, and posted it. And then I received this comment. Let me save you the time, fellow viewer. He's just capping. The video link shows you some replays of him just comboing uninterrupted, then cuts off. We don't see opponents breaking his board, attempting to play through it, how successful it is. Any person with a brain cell who plays Trap Tricks knows its greatest weakness is other back row decks, especially Labyrinth being the best trap deck in the game. First of all, the video I linked as part of that post was to a combo guide. I put in the title, combo guide. I put in the thumbnail, combo guide. I think I say throughout the video, combo guide. That means the replays he's referring to, the ones that I'm cutting off abruptly before my opponent can respond, were just me testing out a field against the default Monarch AI. What? Did you want me to let the Monarch AI play out his turn to try to break my field? Was it the Monarch AI? Did that not tip you off? What did you expect when clicking on this video? Of course these replays were going to get cut off, because I was only showing the combo. I didn't finish those duels out. I conceded instantly, moved on to the next combo, like you'd expect from a combo guide. But don't you worry, I'll be showing you some goddamn replays today. Secondly, the reason this guy mentioned that last part of his comment to do with Labyrinth is because as part of my post, I mentioned that Trap Tricks have a fairly decent matchup against Labyrinth, you know, the very heavy trap deck list, because I mentioned that your Trap Tricks Link monsters and your Xyz monsters are immune to trap cards. I didn't realize this was a hot take. The monsters immune to trap cards have a good matchup against the trap cards. The rest of his comment then proceeded to say I was just like all the other clickbaity YouTubers, just getting you guys to get clickbaited into watching this garbage deck list, or something along those lines anyway. So I decided, screw it, I'm going to take this one comment and make an entire video about it, where I'm basically just going to prove it entirely wrong. I was going to go on the ladder, grab a bunch of replays, and just show how strong this deck list can be. And in the process of grabbing these replays, I went on a 13 game win streak in Master Tier. Apparently I forgot to mention this when recording the rest of this video, so I'm just going to mention it now. If you want to see the deck list I was using in this video, as well as all the combos I was using in this video, feel free to check out that combo guide I just mentioned earlier, because that combo guide is going to cover the full deck list, cover all the combos. I think the only card I actually swapped out in that deck list was I changed the Dark Crawler No More for some Call by the Graves. Otherwise it's the exact same deck list, the exact same combos, and I'll leave a link to that at the top of the description, as well as a little annotation thingo on screen up there somewhere. And if you want to check out the community post as well, where I leave a bunch of cool tips and tricks on this deck list, as well as a bunch of my experiences with it, feel free to check out that as well, and I'll leave links to that in the description as well. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and let's just get into the replays. So obviously, before we get into the replays, I've got to actually show off the match history itself, and show off this 13 game win streak. So as you can see, we started off down here with a few games getting into Master Tier. That's where I showed off the community post, showing off the Master Rank Cup and all that kind of stuff. And then I got that comment, and I was like, I'm gonna farm some replays for a video. So I went ahead and won another 9 games in a row, equaling 13 wins in a row. With the final game being that I lost to, being against none other than a mirror match, which I thought was extremely fitting for this video, that the win streak was only ended by literally me losing to another copy of myself, where the only thing that actually beat me was evenly matched, or my opponent activated evenly matched, it wiped my entire field. Because this archetype is extremely weak to specifically evenly, because we have no inherent spell and trap card negation, so we've got nothing to do when my opponent evenly matches me. I just lose my entire field. So I thought that was extremely fitting for this particular video, that the only thing that managed to end this insane streak was literally another deck list of the exact same kind as what I was playing. Alright, let's jump into these replays. So just a quick reminder before I get into the replays, if you guys are enjoying this video and want to see more content just like this in the future, or more videos from me in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. That way you won't miss out whenever I upload, you'll see whenever I upload more videos just like this one, or whenever I decide to bully other random commenters or something in the future. And if you too want to be bullied, feel free to leave a comment down below, and maybe I'll pick you as a target for one of these future videos. That's a weird way to get people to subscribe. Anyway, let's get into it. So today I've picked 4 replays. All 4 of these replays were against other top tier archetypes, as there's no point me trying to prove someone wrong by beating other meme decks. So I tried to make sure there's no wiggle room for someone to call this deck list garbage by specifically beating only other top tier deck lists. Alright, so let's get into it. So this first starting hand's looking pretty good. We've got a nice little setup here. Normally you want to have other trap cards in hand. When you've specifically opened this many monsters with your double summon from your Pudica, it doesn't really matter. I don't actually pronounce this card, it's like Pudica or something. Either way, now I'm going to activate Pot of Prosperity. As soon as I activated this card, I noticed my opponent had an activation prompt, so he's either got Ash Blossom or Max C in hand. Alright, so we look at the top 5, and we're basically looking for something like a Call by the Grave just to deal with whatever that hand trap is. And we hit it, so we're good to go. Very important to actually get Called by the Grave here, because if he does have Ash Blossom, we normal summon this this card. He'd ash in response to this card, and my turn would basically be over. So good hit here. Grabbing my Garden. He activates Max C. So now I've got Called by for that, saving my Ash Blossom. In hindsight, this was probably a bit of a misplay. I should have used Ash Blossom instead, saved this card for potentially other hand traps. But I thought he would have Ash Blossomed in response to this card, which he didn't, so I don't know. I assumed he wouldn't have anything, because if he had Ash Blossom, I assumed he would have used it in response to this, not the Max C, since I wasn't special summoning yet, but either way. I guess he has to use it before I link summon, so either way, I was sort of a misplay. I probably should have saved it, because he actually did have the Ash Blossom, spoiler alert. Alright, Trap Triggers Garden, give me a second normal summon, grabbing my Momelo, grabbing a Trap Hole. This triggers the Sarah's effect to set my Holotea. Discarding the Trap Hole, summoning it to the field, and this would normally summon out the other Trap Tricks from deck, which will grab me back my Trap card, set it to the field, but unfortunately my opponent had an Ash Blossom, which is really bad at this point, because it means I'm only going to end on not as much disruption as I was hoping for, obviously. So I'm going to end on a copy of my Wrath, Ash Blossom in hand, and that's about it. So not the best end field, it's obviously a pretty shit one, but hopefully it's enough considering my opponent had to use 2 hand traps already and he's only got 3 cards in hand. We have an Ash Blossom, we have my Wrath, and of course once this Wrath has used its effect, detach the copy of Holotea, I can also banish a special summon monster using my Pudica, so technically 3 lots of disruption here. Alright, so opponent's going to summon out, of course, a copy of this Alupa here. I'm going to save my Ash Blossom because I might as well just use him in response to his Branded Fusion in case he has another Branded Fusion in hand already. And I'm also going to use my Wrath in response to negate this Graveyard effect. I probably shouldn't have done this, I probably should have saved it because I don't really think you can do much with this Graveyard effect, so yeah, I think this was a bit of a waste of my Wrath. Definitely should have saved this for another potential Trap Hole if my opponent's something better. It's unlikely this Center Grave would have mattered anyway, but whatever. I'm not too fast, I've got Ash Blossom, I just need to use it on his hand trap, and we're good on his spell card, and we're good to go. Activates Branded Fusion, get Ash Blossomed. And now, even if he was able to do something else, I would have some sort of response, because I still have a copy of my Holotea, and I have my Banish with Pudica in the graveyard, ready to resummon to the field. Yeah, I think my opponent just concedes after this. Alright. On to the next one. So not exactly the greatest replay, that one, just a nice replay showing me beating Branded through a couple of hand traps, but obviously we can do better than that. On to replay number 2. This one was against a copy of a Tearlaments matchup. Alright. So normal summon my Pudica again, getting a copy of my Garden. If my opponent had an Ash Blossom there or something to negate it, it wouldn't have mattered too much, because thankfully I opened Parallel Exceed, so I could have gone into once I go into my Link play, I can summon my 2 dudes to the field. So even without the extra normal summon from Garden, I was still pretty set to go, but we can set up an insane field with this. Alright, going into an Abyss Dweller as quickly as possible. Generally, if you have the option to go into an Abyss Dweller and you can still set up your standard sort of Trap Trick stuff, you probably should do so, because Abyss Dweller, in this format, it's crazy, with most people playing Tearlaments, so I'm just going to Abyss Dweller as soon as I can. Mantis, searching your Arachno. Triggering the effect, grabbing my Holotea. Holotea not as great here because we don't have a Trap Hole to discard, so it will summon itself to the field, trigger the Sarah, but we won't be able to bring back a Trap Hole from Graveyard like you normally do. But it's still fine, we just special summon out a mandatory effect instead, which just goes off even without anything on field. Doesn't really matter. Alright, summoning the Arachno, and I technically set up not the optimal end board here. What I should have done is not gone for this summon here. I should have, before going into my Wrath, I should have gone into a copy of my Time Thief Redoer, using this trap card and one of the monsters that I used for this, then use the remaining 2 monsters, including this one, to go into my Wrath. Because I can't use these 2 monsters to go into Time Thief now, because as soon as you summon this card, you're locked into insects or whatever it is you're locked into, plants and insects, so yeah, if I wanted to go into Time Thief Redoer, I had to do it earlier, and I could have done so. I could have ended on a Redoer and a copy of Wrath, but instead I ended up going for a copy of my Pingu, which definitely wasn't the play here. The Time Thief Redoer would be much better, but yeah, sometimes it's not exactly the worst end field anyway. I've still got my Abyss Dweller, I've got my Wrath, I've got my Suck Up from my opponent's graveyard, I have my special summon of my Arachno from hand for when I do get some back row on field, which I will do through my Sarah in just a second. And of course, we still have the Holotea to special summon back the Pudica to banish one of my opponent's cards. Alright. And my opponent has a Super Poly. Another reason where if we had the Time Thief Redoer on the field, it would have been a lot better. Instantly triggering the Abyss Dweller because we now know what it is. We've seen the Soliac. Alright. And as soon as he activates this spell card, I know his plan. His game plan is to make this thing lose all its attack, because as soon as he does so, he can beat over it, and then he can play the game, or at least play the game during my turn. I'm like, nope. We are making sure this thing is not staying on the field. Using my Holotea, bringing out my Mermail. Oh, my Mermello. Destroying this card so he cannot reduce my attack, so he cannot beat over the Abyss Dweller, and that's basically his just turn done. Alright, so it's Branded down, that's Tearlament down. What is next? Well, of course, when you have a post where someone is saying this deck list sucks against Labyrinth, you've got to show off a Labyrinth matchup. You've got to, so we made sure to get at least one Labyrinth replay in here. Unfortunately, it wasn't going second, because going second so we can see the immune to traps more effective, but it's fine. Alright, once again, we opened my Pudica again. Alright, now we'll sign my Mermello. Mermello gonna grab a copy of my Gravedigger's Trap Hole. Normally you grab a copy of your... Actually, normally you grab a trap card off, you grab your Holotea off Sarah, but thankfully we already have this card in hand anyway. So we just grab another Trap Tricks Trap Hole instead. Alright, Holotea discarding, and finally we can show off this combo, summoning out the Dynea, bringing back the Trap Hole, and setting it on the field. These 2 monsters going to go into a Pingu. Searching for a copy of my Arachno, so I can use these 2 monsters, then go into our Wrath. Alright, there we are. 3 Trap Holes on the field, an Ash Blossom in hand, a Wrath ready to use another Trap Hole from deck list. We have a Pingu to suck up from our opponent's graveyard. And of course, we have your Holotea in graveyard once again to bring back this card to banish a card, or to bring back one of the things I'll detach from this thing to pop some back row or something. Alright. And keep in mind, we also have all the bonus effects from this card, where everything's just sort of immune to being destroyed by card effects and stuff. All these cards are immune to being destroyed outside of this card. Alright. So our opponent's going to take Pot of Extravagance. First thing I do is activate Ash Blossom. There's no way I'm going to let him draw 2 cards when I have this much disruption anyway. I might as well just use the Ash Blossom right now. I'm still pretty confident I'll be fine. Plus, if you do stop him using Pot of Extravagance, it means there's less chance he'll draw into the one counter for this deck list, or the one main counter, that being the evenly matched. Because even if he has like a Feather Duster here, it's pretty bad, but it's not that bad. We still have some disruption, and we still have some disruption from the graveyard. But if he has evenly matched, I'm just going to end on one monster and still technically have the disruption in graveyard, but it's going to feel a hell of a lot worse, especially with the trap cards being banished. That is awful, because that's no recursion on the trap cards the rest of the game. Alright. He's going to chain a copy of his hand monster thingo, of course. Gravedigger is just going to negate that. Going to use his Coup Clock. That's not going to be doing a whole lot when he's we've just negated his Trap Search. So now he's got 2 cards in hand to try to play the game with. He activates Imperm. Now, what it won't show in this replay is the massive pause that occurred as soon as he activated this. I think he activated this card, read Sarah, then realized, huh. Yeah, this thing's immune to traps. Yeah. So this wasn't going to do anything. So after a good long pause, he then decided to target the card that's already... Did I even use it? I think I already used this card's effect. Maybe I didn't. Either way, this thing is also immune to traps, so this also did nothing, but anyway. Summon this card, bring the trap back from graveyard, and my opponent conceded. Alright. Final replay. So of course, we had to show a going second replay. I didn't want to show off too many going second replays because they are awfully boring. Mostly going second wins for this deck list just because of how it functions, where it isn't really a going second deck. Is the entire goal of it is to make sure your opponent has as little on the field as possible, or you disrupt your opponent as much as you can. So use your hand traps, use things like Max C, use your evenly matches, whatever you've got. Just make sure your opponent has not an optimal end field. Because if it ends on any sort of insane end field, this deck list, realistically, it won't play through it. It's not that sort of deck list. But if you do disrupt your opponent enough, there's plenty of extenders in this deck list, whether it be Parallel Exceed, would that be your Putica, get your field spell for an extra summon, whether that be your special summonable trap trick from hand. There's plenty of extenders and other things in this deck list. Your trap card, your Holotea, when it's on the field, you can set it, special summon it to the field, go into your link monster that way. There's plenty of ways to extend through some disruption, so as long as your opponent has not that much, you can still play the game, is basically what this deck list does. So going second, it's not that exciting. Most of the time it's just winning through evenly matched or through Max C, but that's just sort of how this deck list goes. This was still a really good really good showing of it, because this was against Sprite. Or Sprite with Tri Brigade. Gonna Ash Blossom here. Not the best Ash Blossom, there's not really much of a choice. I'm just hoping he doesn't have any other extenders in hand, so his end field's already gonna be very sort of weakish. I think Sprite, if you Ash Blossom and they've only got 2 monsters on field, they generally only end on like an IP and maybe 1 negate at best, if they don't have any other extenders in hand. And then Negate would have to tribute off like their IP or tribute off their Link 2 they've got in the field or something for it, so it'd be pretty bad. And thankfully, I think he didn't have any other extenders, so he goes into his Sprite Elf, he brings back his dude. Actually, he did have another extender. Oh no, he must have just searched for that one, I'm dumb, never mind, ignore me. Goes into his IP and passes, so honestly, a really weak end field. I think he must have misplayed here somewhere, or maybe this really is just all he could end on, but... yeah, this felt really weak to me, but maybe this was basically all he could end on. Just the IP, maybe a negate, or ending on his Harass or something. Either way. Top decks the evenly, because I'm goddamn good at this game. Uses IP, going to be summoning back a dude from graveyard. This is because, the only reason he instantly activated this is because I threatened to go to battle phase here. Because these cards are both main phase effects, so he's forced to use them both, or obviously lose out. Even if I didn't have evenly, by the way, this is a good way to bait out your opponent's effects. If you just want to pretend to go to battle phase, pretending you have an evenly or pretending you have an imperm or something, you can make your opponent force them to use their effects. So he goes into a copy of Adignista. This is not what I expected. You guys know what I expected. The stupid untargetable thing. He went into this card instead. The card that's 4,000 attack and just completely immune to all card effects. I was like, what the I did not expect this thing at all, but... alright, cool, I guess. So we're going to evenly match, get rid of that back row. Funny thing is with evenly matched is it forces your opponent to choose a card, so I'm pretty sure it would force this thing to go to the graveyard or banish this card if he decided to select it. It's not actually immune to evenly. Another cool thing about evenly, just, yeah, making your opponent choose things, so it's not technically a card effect. It's weird wording, but yeah, I think this thing would actually have been banished if he tried to target it. Alright, so my main goal is to somehow get rid of this thing that's completely immune, and we do have a way. So we're going to our Link monster, our Sarah. Normal summon, giving us a second monster to the field, reviving back. Triggering this card is a bit of a chain block. This thing has no effect, but we might as well chain block anyway. Alright. Getting my Holotea. Summoning out, getting Sarah's effect, summoning out once again. Bringing it off to a Pingu so we can get a card search. Can't summon this thing though, because I do plan to go into something in particular here. Wiping the whole field. And there is my Underworld Goddess. So there's actually another little play I could have made here, but I think I could use the field spell to banish this monster, to then revive one of my trap tricks from graveyard, and then I could have used my Arachno on field and gone into one of my Xyz monsters here, going into the Raft, then have a potential trap hole effect for one of my opponent has. But I thought, is that necessarily better than having this thing that's basically like a gigantic boss monster with a negate on it anyway? And I still have some disruption with Pingu and Trap Card and Grave anyway, or the Trap Card on my Momelo, so I decided to just keep this guy around instead. Alright. Pretty good normal summon for him, getting out a big boss or getting out a small boss monster dude that he can go into a Link 4 with right now. Obviously, we're going to stop him doing anything of the sort, banishing his monster, and he just concedes. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's replays. Hopefully I convinced you guys this deck list is in fact a good deck list, and that guy was talking out his ass. Alright guys, thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, hope to see you guys in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob? Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis. Oh.